And it is time to take a look at the books that I have been reading in February and see what I thought of them. So I actually read quite a few this month, considering it's quite a short month. I read 8. I think I'd maybe started Weyward right at the beginning of the month, so I maybe sort of that bridged January and February. People seem to like the video that I did last month. Hopefully you will like this one as well. I endeavour, but I make no promises, to say a lot less. I did it a lot last time and I was trying to edit them out of the video and I just ended up with a big pile of ums. So I might talk a little bit more slowly and a little bit more considered as I try and tell you what I thought of each of these books. Now, some of them I loved. Some of them I loved less. Let's say that. You might be able to work out which ones are which as I go through them. Speaking of working out which ones are which, we are going to start with The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. This is actually the proof copy. This is not what it looks like. I think that is a little bit more what it looks like. Evelyn Clark is not a real person. It is the amalgamation of 2 authors. It is V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. Now, I'll be honest, before I go on to the plot, I am going to just have a little rant about that. Evelyn Clark was presented as a bit of a mystery. It was up front said, this is somebody or some bodies in the industry. Who might they be? We're not going to tell you. It's going to be a secret. And that was probably last summer 2025. And they then revealed by November who they were. It does say on the back, actually, secrets don't stay secret for long in publishing. So maybe they were trying to make that point. I don't know. But it felt like they didn't really build up the mystery, didn't really build up the tension. And I'll be honest, I don't think it needed to be a mystery at all. I don't know why this isn't just by V.E. Schwab and Kat Clark. V.E. Schwab has got quite a name, but a niche name. People who know her love her. People who don't know her don't know her. Kat Clark, as they admit, is a lesser name, like not as famous. And so I don't know why they needed to disguise them. Except maybe it was a point they were trying to make about the book itself. This is about an author, Arthur Fletch. He's died, and he has, well, not he, but his publisher has gathered a group of mid-list writers on his Scottish island to finish his book. Now, this is the final book in his big series. It is going to be the biggest book ever. Think, I don't know, Dan Brown at the height of his fame, as if he'd carried on writing book after book after book each year, and this is the final book in that series, and it's going to finally tell you exactly what happens. Think maybe George R.R. Martin if the TV show hadn't kind of ruined it all and told us what happens. When that book finally comes out, it's going to be huge, but not as big as it might have been had the TV show not happened. This is what's happening with Fletcher's book. The last 10,000 words just need writing. So they get these authors all into this hotel. They give them typewriters. They give them different coloured bits of paper so that they know or can track who has written what. It's going to be anonymous. So the editor is going to be in a little cottage. They're going to, off away from the sort of big house. They're going to write their words and they're going to drop it into the letterbox, and he's going to read them and he's going to work out exactly who he wants. He's going to go, right, the pink one, that's it. Who wrote the pink book? And then pink lady or pink man will turn around and say, yes, that was me. And they're going to win not only the £1 million for finishing the book. They're not going to be able to tell anyone that it was them. There's going to be signed NDAs. They do, though, get a publishing deal for themselves, also worth £1 million. So it is no small thing. Of course, what happens is people start dying. I didn't love it. I wanted to really like it. I liked the concept. I just everything fell a bit flat. So there's different authors on the table. There is, as you know, it messes around with the structure a little. You've got part one, which goes through all of the different sort of players. So you've got the thriller writers, who are a married couple. They write under one name. So you've got Malcolm and Sienna. They write under one name, which is a male name. They've got a romance writer. Then you've got a science fiction writer. You've got a young adult writer. You've got a fantasy writer. And they all sort of blur into one. Apart from maybe Millie, the young adult writer. I think her name was Millie. It's been a while since I've read this. It's been a few weeks. I found that the characters kind of all blended into one. I thought maybe there could have been a bit more of a bit more of attention on them as people rather than the plot, what was happening. To the point that two characters, Kenzo and Jackson, they're both young men. One of them writes sci-fi, one of them writes fantasy. Maybe the point is that you can't tell them apart during the book, because maybe it's making a point about genre fiction and how science fiction is basically just fantasy in space. I don't know, but I struggle to tell them apart. One of them then gets a defining characteristic later on, but you only find out about it quite a time later on, to the point that I'm not going to tell you what that is. But I don't think it ruins anything to tell you from what that is, because it doesn't really get used. It's kind of pointless. So I also thought they're all writers, and they're all running around this big house, and there's secret passageways, and there's a murderer, and people are dying. And they keep saying things like, that's a bit of a cliche. Like, I should go out the front door, not run up the stairs. And then they run up the stairs, and they think to themselves, that's a bit of a cliche. Like, I'm a good enough writer to know that is a cliche, and I shouldn't use that phrase. And yet these writers use that phrase, and they keep pointing out that it's a cliche. And it's like they were writing it and going, oh, this is a bit hokey. Let's just have our characters point it out. So then it's meta and it's okay. And it's not, it's just pointing out that this book is filled with cliches. I wanted it to be more. I thought it was a good concept. But I was disappointed. This is The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. Don't get me wrong, it was enjoyable. It passed some time, but I don't think I'm really going to remember too much about it come the end. I also think it was a bit like a Scream movie. I say this having just seen Scream 7. It's good, it's gory, it's fun while you're watching it. The motive for the murderer doesn't really make much sense, and the murders themselves are sort of enjoyable to watch. But it's fluff. It's not going to be the biggest book of the year, which I think the publishers were hoping it might be. This is The Ending Writes Itself. It comes out in April. Maybe I've not sold it to you, I don't know. But if you would like to take a little bit more look at it, you can take a look at bertsbooks.co.uk. Sisterstong was our LGBT book club pick we actually read it in January, discussed it in February, and I read it very first week of February. It's about I'm going to read you the blurb on this one, actually. King Cador's children inherit a war-torn land abandoned by the Romans. Reva can cure others, but can't heal her scars. Keen battles to be seen as the king's son, although born a daughter. Cinna yearns for love, longing for adventure, and all three fear a life trapped within their hold as the Saxons advance. However, change arrives with Myrddin, meddler and magician. As the siblings awake to their dormant powers, fate also brings them Tristan, a warrior who could herald joy or despair. They'll all face treachery and heartbreak as they fight for their dreams. Now, this is a vivid narrative, it says, that reimagines the Trois Sisters, which is an old British folk ballad. I knew nothing of that ballad. I know nothing of that period of history. There were people who did, in book club, who then did not enjoy this book. They said it takes a lot of sort of myth and legend and just sort of cherry picks the bits it wants, and it presents the history that we know from those legends and myths as if they're fact. For what the Druids are up to, the feast days, and yet it was pointed out to us that actually those traditions were written down and used to explain Christianity several hundred years later. So it's not necessarily what was happening in Britain at the time. The three sisters, Reva, Keen and Cinna, are all a bit undefined at the beginning. It goes over the course of a year, this book, and at first, again, it's a little difficult to tell them apart, but as time goes on, you start to learn more about them, and you've got this. I think Keen is possibly the most richly defined of them. They start out as a tomboy, essentially. That's what you would call them. They are not like their sisters. They don't want to really wander around in a dress. They want to just go out and fight in the woods. And then they meet Myrddin, and, well, they don't meet him. He comes to town quite regularly. They know who he is. And he's been away for a while and he comes back. And it's his presence that really sort of changes Keen. And then the arrival of Tristan, who is from maybe another town, another tribe, and I'm not sure where. He sort of falls for Reva, who is scarred. She has a wound, or she was in an incident that caused her. She's got a limp, a sore hand, scars on her face, but he kind of falls for her, and they form a relationship. And yet Cinna, who has this sort of power to know the future, has seen herself with Tristan, and so she's kind of interested in him, but only because she thinks that's how her life is going to go. Of course, Tristan, there is also the question of, does he have an agenda? Why is he going after Reva when she is not the most beautiful of the three sisters? It was fine. Like it passed some time. I enjoyed it whilst I was reading it. There were people in book club who loved this. There were people in book club who didn't. I was somewhere in the middle. I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I wasn't reading it for the history, because I don't read books for the history, because I don't always trust them. And I thought it was a fun read. I enjoyed it a lot. There is a scene later on with Keen and Myrddin and Cinna, and it's very memorable. It is a moment in the book where we all just went, whoa, was not expecting that. It's quite a graphic scene. It's very visceral in the way it's described. Whereas the rest of the book, I think, is a little light on description. Maybe it did that on purpose to build up to this scene. I don't know. You will know it when you get to it. If you're reading it and you think, oh, I wonder if this is the scene, it's not. You will know it. If you've read it already, you know the scene I'm talking about. I don't think I will ever forget that scene or what happens coming from it. This is Sisterstong. It's by Lucy Holland, and it is available now. Weyward. Now, this was the first book I read this month. It was for our general fiction book club, and it is, again, a little bit witchy, a bit like Sisterstong. Again, I'm going to read you the blurb. Why not? In the present day, Kate flees a traumatic relationship to the Cumbrian cottage she inherited from her great aunt, but the cottage hides secrets of its own. In 1942, Violet rebels against her father's ideas of a proper young lady, until he takes matters into his own hands. In 1619, Alpha is on trial for witchcraft, implicated in the gruesome death of a local man. 3 women they try to cage, but wayward women belong to the wild, and they cannot be tamed. So it's a feminist novel. It talks about free women and how they are treated at the time. It jumps around a bit. So you jump from Alva to Violet to Kate. And Alva she is, she's very in tune with nature. She's called a witch because she knows which plants heal what. Sometimes they don't work. So there's an instance where she and her mum, they go to somebody who is not well. The local doctor is there, bleeding them with leeches, and they rip the leeches off and they try their cure. Their cure is the one that would work. It just doesn't on this occasion. It's too late. And yet people are like, witch, you did that thing and they died. So 'tis your fault. We don't know what Alpha is on trial for, certainly at the beginning. It says implicated in the gruesome death of a local man on the back, but we don't really know that. We don't know what happened to who and how. It then goes forward quite a way to 1942, 300 years, and Violet is middle of the war, and she is being in this house, quite a big house, and her father, things have changed, but her father is not letting her be who she wants to be. She wants to be out in nature, but he's not letting her. He's forcing her to marry somebody. He's keeping her inside. He's not letting her explore that side of herself. And then we've got Kate, who has, as it says on the blurb, is in a bad relationship. We meet her as she's leaving it, and she is not connected to nature in any way. She has no affinity with it. She lives in a big sort of concrete block of flats, and yet she goes to this cottage. It's on the same land that Alva and Violet have lived, who are, we find out, her distant relatives. In fact, Violet is Kate's aunt, her great aunt, the one who she inherited the cottage from. And we learn about their lives, we learn about their stories, and we learn what happens when that sort of stuff is bottled up. At first, I struggled a bit, particularly with Kate's story. There is a moment where there's like magic is implied in this. Certainly with Violet, and more so with Kate, there is magic. Not so much with Alva, who is just in tune with nature. But there is a moment with Kate where it is undeniably, what happens is undeniably unnatural. And it felt to me like, at the time, it felt to me like it was crossing a line. It was saying, it was not keeping it vague, it was not keeping it as a possibility in my head, it was telling me this thing happened. And so I'm not a fan of when in a contemporary novel that's set in our world, when magic or things that don't happen are presented as definitely fact. More on that, actually, when we get to the drowning place later. But it crossed a line, and it sort of went from maybe this is happening, maybe it's not, to this happened. But the more I think about it, and when we talked about it at book club, I wonder if, again, it's kind of the point. Alva has no limitations on her, apart from the fact that she's on trial for murder. She uses her connection with the land, she uses her connection with nature, and she is fine. She uses it every day. Kate doesn't, and it just all bursts out of her at one point, and maybe that's why it crosses the line into this is magic. Maybe what the story is trying to say is that we have lost our way a little bit. I liked this one more after we spoke about it at book club, which just goes to show that sometimes you can read a book and just dismiss it. Especially when you read as many as I do. You read them, you put it down, you go on to the next one. You don't give it breathing space. You don't give it time to think. And I was glad that I did talk about this one, because I think I ended up liking it more. I certainly liked Amelia Hart's writing style. I thought that at times Alva was less interesting, and then she became more interesting. And that was just parts of her story that I liked. I also like that on the top page, which you can't see, let me do that. There we go. There is a crow, and it flaps as you twist the pages. So that was fun. That one was Weyward by Amelia Hart. It is out now. Lazar. I think that's how it's pronounced. It's by Nelio Biederman. Again, I will read you the blurb of this one. And I might not be saying this right, by the way. The Lazars have ruled their Hungarian lands for generations, in their ancient castle by the edge of a dark forest that compels all who enter it to madness. They succumb to every vice and live only to satiate their desires. But the old order is crumbling, and the days of the Habsburg monarchy are numbered. When Lehos inherits everything, they at last have a baron who can reignite the old splendours. But not even his abilities are proof against the ravages of war and occupation. It will fall to his children, a boy who talks to shadows, and a girl who eschews her blue blood, to stand against oppression and take the first faltering steps towards freedom. So it kind of covers the first half of the 20th century. And it's the decline of Europe, it's the decline of monarchy, it's just the decline of what was aristocratic, sort of European, to what it ends up becoming, and because of the wars that causes that. It jumps forward quite a bit, so you start at the birth of Lehos, and then he doesn't really become the main character. It becomes all about his son and his daughter. You get bits of his other family going through. You don't like any of these people, but it's a really illuminating tale, I would say, of what was happening at that time, and it puts you in the mindset of why these people were like they were. Now, the kids, they didn't ask to be born into this family. They didn't ask to grow up as aristocrats, but it's the only life they've ever known. And so we look at them and go, oh, they're spoiled, they're rich, they are born with a silver spoon in their mouth. And yet they've never known any different. Are they at fault for being born that way, born into that way of life, any more than we are for being born into the lives we're born into? That's one thing that sort of goes through us. Yes, they're not very nice, but is that because of circumstance, or were they just not very nice people? So that's an interesting one to talk about. I think there is definitely the spoiledness of it. There's one character who falls in love with a girl, and he becomes obsessed with her. She goes off. They doesn't see her for years, but he thinks about her all the time. And then he learns that she and her family were killed by the Germans for being Jewish. And he says, oh, is she Jewish? No idea, didn't know. And you then go, well, how did you love her? Did you really love her? Because you didn't seem to know really anything about her. Nelio Biederman is this guy. He's a very young guy. He born in 2003, so he's just turned 23, or is about to turn 23. This one is doing the rounds. This is going to be, I think, quite big in certain circles. It's quite literary. It's not going to, set the world on fire. It's not going to appeal to supermarket shoppers. This isn't going to be there. This is, though, I think some people will love this. People with an understanding of European history will get a lot out of this. I think it's written terribly well, especially when you consider how old he is. I think, though, and I wonder how much of this is autobiographical in a way. So it does say on this blurb at the back that Biederman's paternal family is of Hungarian nobility, and that his grandparents fled to Switzerland in the 1950s. So you do wonder how much of this is real. But real or not, it's presented in a wonderful way, and the writing is very promising. I will certainly be reading more from Nelio Biederman. even if I think that is a terrible cover. We are halfway through now, and I am going to tell you about Fruitfly by Josh Silver. You might know the name. He's written a few young adult novels, Dead Happy being one of them, and this is his first adult novel. Let me read you the blurb. Anyone can write a bestseller. Here's how. Go gay. It's been 7 years since Mallory shot to fame as a literary sensation, but after years of struggling with writer's block, she's desperate to resurrect her career before it spirals into obscurity. She needs inspiration to strike, and fast. Go sad. Enter Leo, a young, struggling addict sleeping under bridges and trading sex for survival. He's vulnerable, enigmatic. Exactly what Mallory has been looking for. Go dark. Mallory needs Leo if she wants another bestseller. Authenticity sells, and there's nothing more authentic than real life. She's the perfect person to tell Leo's story. Gay, sad, dark, just what the world needs right now. But as secrets threaten to unravel more than just her career, Mallory must decide just how far she will go to pen the perfect story. I loved this book. I can't begin to tell you. So you've got Leo, who is a poet, and you've got Mallory. Well, I say he's a poet. He is a poet. This much is true. He, though, is also living on the streets. He is in a halfway house some of the time. He trades sexual favours for drugs and for other things. Like there's one guy who always gives him money, but he has to bring him Haribo in return, and then just do whatever he wants him to do. Some of that, as the blurb says, is very dark, what happens to Leo. What happens with Mallory, certainly at the beginning, is very funny. She's incredibly naive. She decides after a party at her house with her husband that she needs to revive her career. It's been 9 years or so in the doldrums, and he's passed out on the bed next to her, trousers around his ankles, dick flopping around, and she takes a picture of him, and she uploads it to Grindr. She downloads Grindr, then uploads this picture to Grindr. She uses a picture of his torso as her profile picture. She cuts the dick out. And she starts to talk to people, and she realises there's somebody nearby. And he invites her, or invites this man, the person he thinks he's talking to a tea party. And Mallory is so incredibly naive. She thinks, "Wow, a tea party at this time of night. I'll take some of the vol au vents from the party. I'll wrap them up, take them around. We can eat those. That'd be nice. Bit weird at 2 a.m, but let's go with it." So it's not far away. She gets in the car because she's not so naive that she thinks she can just walk across London at this time of night. And when she gets there, she realises her mistake. She is outside when Leo is trying to get in, and he's brought the drugs for the party, the tea party. Tea is for Tina, and he is arguing with the young man at the door who is in just a pair of pants. And then an older man, the man that Mallory had been talking to, arrives or appears at the door. He's completely naked, and he kicks Leo out into the street, and another car, driven by somebody who is looking for Leo, knocks Leo down. So Mallory gets him in. He goes off. He drives off, and Leo's left on the road. She gets him in the car, and she takes him home, back to his house, or the halfway house where he's staying. He pretends, "Oh yeah, I'm just going to go in a bit. I'm going to just have a little smoke or whatever." And actually, he's sleeping in the bush because he's not allowed to go in at that time of night. And his story is incredibly dark. Mallory's is quite funny and then gets dark. And the relationship between the two of them, Mallory is using his story. He doesn't know, at least to begin with. And then there's her husband, her mum. All of them have opinions about Mallory and who she is and what she should be. And her life ultimately is just as bleak as Leo's, in very different ways. Some of it's more comfortable, but her future is is less so. This is Fruitfly. It comes out in April, and I think you should read it. And I love the cover as well. Now, Game Changer by Rachel Reed. You may have heard of this one. It is the book that started the Game Changer series. No surprise there. Its second book in the series is called Heated Rivalry, which is the book that inspired the TV show featuring these guys here. There we go. Ilya and the other one. I've forgotten his name. This is not about them. This is about Kip and Scott. I'm not going to read you the blurb on this one because you don't need it. Scott's a hockey player. Kip works in a smoothie bar, and they meet one morning, and Scott basically returns to form as a hockey player, and he says it's down to the smoothie. I got to keep the routine. Scott is secretly in the closet. Kip very much not, and stuff happens, and they end up going out. There's flirtage to happen to start with, and there's a little bit, but they end up meeting again at a charity night where Kip is in a tuxedo. He's a cater waiter. He's going around with canapes. Scott is there as a guest, and they've not had much food, and they've kind of been eyeing each other up all night, and they say, shall we go and get a burger? So they run off and get a burger. They got one bite into it, and they basically realise that they're both gay, and that they both fancy each other. So the burger is left where it is, and they run off back to Scott's house, Scott's apartment, and they have lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of sex. That's kind of the first 40 pages. The sex is graphic. Do not read this if you are a bit of a prude, and do not let children read it, despite the cartoon cover. There's a lot of, you know exactly what is where at any given time. Their story is, I go on a rant on this for about 25 minutes on the latest episode of the podcast. I felt like it was dull. They meet, they fall in love, they have lots of sex. There's no build up to that. There's no erotic tension for the reader. You're just straight into, boom, here's the sex. And it's not even sexy sex, I would say. It's very, this happened, that happened. He licked this, I licked that. I felt a bit worn out by it, I'll be honest. Because not only does the sex happen, it happens frequently. In fact, it says that at the back, on the back. What goes on between them is hot, incredible, and frequent. And boy, is it frequent. To the point where I'm left going, well, what's the story? Am I just going to be going from date to date to date, working out what the story is? Eventually a story does turn up. And that is that Kip starts to feel a bit marginalised. Scott doesn't want to come out. Or he does, but he's not ready, and he needs to do it in his own way. That, fine, you know. But he doesn't treat Kip terribly well. Kip doesn't communicate with Scott. The normal sort of tropes that you get in a rom-com. But it takes 200 pages for that to happen. Up to that point, you're left going, why? What's going on? It was just all so predictable, and a little bit like these characters I felt were very, very pretty, but dull. And I'm not sure, maybe I'm not the audience for this. Maybe I just wanted a bit more build-up. I think I just didn't think it was that believable. I don't know people that behave like this. I don't know why Kip and Scott fell in love with each other. We're not really told very much about either one's personality. We certainly don't really know what they look like. Considering there's a lot of sex in this, I don't know what their bodies look like, apart from I'm told big. Like, Scott's supposed to be quite a hulking player. They've both got big dicks, but they're not described in any great detail. They could just be generic penis. I thought it was okay. I can see why there's an audience for this, But if you took the sex out of this, there's not a lot there holding it up, I would say. Now, I have been told that this is the weakest of the books. There's 6 in total. That's 6. But I'm not sure if I'd read the others. I'm watching the TV show now that I've read the first book. I'm going to watch the TV show. We're going to talk about this in our LGBT book club in a week or so. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they say. I know some people, again, have loved this. Maybe I'm the wrong. Maybe I'm the problem. But I'm just not sure this one was for me. Maybe I'll give the second book a go and see, and sort of benefit of the doubt, finding her feet. But I just can't see what the other 6 books are. So they feature different couples. They're all gay men. They're all in the hockey series. And if all of these hockey players are in the closet, I fear we're just going to get the same story repeated over and over again. Maybe I'll be proved wrong. This is Game Changer. It is by Rachel Reed. Rachel Reed is hot stuff right now. She's one of the biggest authors in the UK, just on volume alone so far in 2026. Now, The Silent Appeal by Janice Hallett. This is a sequel to Janice's first book, The Appeal. I will read you the blurb. It's a new theatrical season in Lower Lockwood, and the amateur thespians of the Fairway Players are starting rehearsals for Agatha Christie's The Hollow. Despite troublesome new members, countless petty squabbles, and a gruesome accident with the lighting rig, surely this will be their greatest show to date. But someone is hiding a devastating secret, and they won't make it to opening night. Could it be Sarah Jane's sister, back in Lockwood after 20 years abroad? New member Lucas, whose shady business dealings may be his downfall? Or is it Izzy, out of prison, and still up to her old tricks? Lawyers Femi and Charlotte must sift through the evidence to identify the victim and find out why the convicted murderer refuses to speak in their own defence. Will they uncover the truth in time? Will you? So, if you've read Janice Hallett before, you'll know that the typical format of these are emails and text messages. Text messages and emails. And they work really well. It works as well as it has in any of our other books. You forget that you're reading emails, because essentially what you've got is no description in these books. I've said of a few of these that they struggle with lack of description. There is no description in this. You do not know what the characters look like, because all you're getting is emails and text messages between people who already know each other. But it works because you kind of have an idea of who these people are by the way they talk. Their description is in the way they speak, their dialogue, their behaviours. You know who these people are. You've met these people. They're all very terribly middle class, and they've all got sort of terrible middle class passive aggression, and it makes it funny. This is what I loved about The Appeal. It's got this unique way of storytelling, and yet also it's funny. I think some of Janice's other books have struggled a little bit, or I've struggled with them, because they don't quite have the same sense of humour. But this one is back, and I really enjoy being in this world and learning about these characters and working out exactly what happens. The best thing about it is the murder doesn't happen for quite a long way through. You know there's one coming. You don't know who it is that's going to die. You don't even know who's been arrested for it. And yet, you still stay with it. You just want to know what's going on and whether the play is going to be put on. I think if there wasn't a murder, I'd still read this. I think it's just a wonderful slice of life, and these people are exactly who you think they are, and it's very funny. I enjoy it a lot. It's not quite as good as The Appeal, but it makes a very worthy successor to it, a very worthy sequel. This one is out in September, but you can pre-order it right now at bertsbooks.co.uk. Now, I've left The Drowning Place to last by Sarah Hilary. Why have I left it to last? Because it was my favourite of the month. And I'm just going to read you the blurb straight away. But before I do, actually, look at that list of names. Anne Cleves, Peter James, Ian Rankin, Erin Kelly, Val McDermott. They all loved this book. They can't be wrong, at least not all of them. So, Enskar is a town in the Peak District. It has more ghosts than most. 17 years ago, its inhabitants were hit by a tragedy when a school bus veered off the road and everyone on board drowned. Everyone, that is, except Joseph Ashe. His miraculous survival has haunted him and the town ever since. He's now a detective sergeant in the local police and is called to the scene of a brutal and apparently inexplicable crime. The whole town is spooked, but Joe's new boss, D.I. Laurie Bauer, more used to inner-city police work, has no time for superstition. She just wants to find the very real killer who has left no trace and apparently had no motive. This starts with the bus crash that it mentions in the blurb there. Joe is 10, 11, and he is one of maybe a dozen children on this bus as a teacher and a bus driver. And there's a little bit of a ruckus. Basically, he holds hands with his best friend Sammy, and one of the bullies on the bus is like, "Oh, you're holding hands with a boy. Yeah, gross, gross, gross." And there's a little bit of ruckus. The bus driver turns to look to see what's going on, and it goes off the road into a reservoir. And the last we see is Joe refusing to let go of Sammy's hand. Flash forward 17 years or so, Joe is now in his late 20s. He's out for a run. He's by the reservoir, the one that they crashed into. And Sammy joins him and he says, "Look, you've got to let this go. You can't just keep coming up here." And it becomes... And at first, you're like, "Hey, great, yay, Sammy survived." But then you learn that he didn't. And Sammy is a ghost. Joe... It's difficult to say whether Joe is definitely seeing him for real or as a figment of his imagination. And that's what I like about books like this, is the conceit is that Joe can see ghosts, and we see the ghosts that he sees. But there is no sort of definitive decision either way from the author that says the ghosts were not real, they were definitely a figment of Joe's imagination. Nor does it say... the ghosts are real. Yeah, no, these are definitely real. Like, he can see them all. No, these are... He sees the ghosts of the other children. He sees the ghosts of Sammy, yet Sammy has aged with him. So he's a man. And other people in the town claim to see the ghosts as well. And that is described and explained away as sort of like mass hallucination. Like, this was a terrible tragedy that hit this small town, small community. And they in their grief, some of them wanted something to hold on to, and when he said he could see the ghosts, they joined in with that. Is that important to the book? I don't know. It certainly sets him apart from other characters that we've seen before. There's Laurie as well, his new boss. She's just moved to town, back. Her husband has moved back. It's her first time living there. He's moved back to look after his father, who's not very well. And she's there for 6 months. She's going to put her head down and just get on with it. She's from Manchester, does big city crime. This is just going to be a quiet 6 months. Boom. Then there are the murders. And it's kind of sort of police procedural from there on. Except that sometimes Sammy is there, and he kind of gives a sounding board to Joe. There's other stuff that we learn about Joe as well, which I would like to go into more detail about. And I think this is badged as the first in a new series, so I would love to see. I'm waiting to see that next series. I think that this is a great start to it, and two very interesting characters with two very different lives and how they're going to interact. They do get on, but it feels like they are sort of heading for some kind of collision between the two of them. So when Laurie eventually will find out, presumably, about the ghosts that Joe sees, what will her reaction be? How will it involve her dead sister and her grief for her? There's a lot of grief in this book. It was so wonderfully written and so entertaining. Sometimes a crime mystery is just all about the plot. and you don't really know anything of the characters. This balances it really well, and I thought that it was a great start to the series. I've read Sarah Hilary books before. I think Black Fawn was the last one I read, which I enjoyed. But there was something extra about this one, and I can't really say what that was, except it feels real. It doesn't have like they say the sensationalism of, say, a psychological thriller where somebody's out to get somebody. This felt real. It felt like this really did happen, what happens in this book. It's out in April. A few of these are actually out in April, but you can pre-order this now at bertsbooks.co.uk. So that is it for the February roundup. Which one of these are you most excited to read? Have I sold you on any of these? Maybe you're going to tell me that I'm wrong and that I should reread some of them and reform my opinion. Do let me know in the comments. This is what YouTubers do. They point like this to point to the bottom of the video. They pretend that they are just living inside this box on your computer, on your screen. So yeah, in the comments, do that. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. That way, I don't really know what happens. You'll get the notification of the videos. I will get lots of new followers, and then hopefully I'll sell lots and lots of books, and hopefully people will find a few books that they like as well. That's kind of the reason I do this. Nobody gets into book selling to make money. I just get into to share my love of books, and I have enjoyed all of these in one way or another. I think some of them disappointed me. I went in with too high expectation. Some of them I felt could be better. And I think even Game Changer, which is probably the one that I felt the most, like if I was rating them out of 5, it would probably be the one that received the lowest rating. But it's given me this beautiful gift of something to rant about and something to talk to other people about. And I can't wait to talk to the Gay Book Club about that one and find out what they thought of it. If you are in Swindon and want to come to the Gay Book Club, then do. You can come on the second Monday of every month at 7 p.m. right here in this bookshop. If you can't make it, sucks to be you. Have a look around, speak to your local bookshop and see if they run their own book club and maybe go along to that instead. You can order all of these books at bertsbooks.co.uk, and in the meantime, just pop onto the website, sign up to the newsletter. You'll get an idea of all the books I'm reading. Listen to the podcast. You'll hear some more in-depth reviews of all of these books. And yeah, keep reading.